he calls it my master plan,
Okay.
which is not as manipulative as it sounds.
It's not like starting a D&D campaign and and you happen to tell your friend to invite him. Nothing like that.
Nothing, totally nothing like that. No, it's actually more of exactly that.
Looking for your player too? Welcome to the Date Like a Nerd podcast, where your gamer skills, dice rolls, and cosplay are your greatest dating assets. I'm Alex, and I'm a dating coach who helps shy, introverted nerds find their player two organically. I've interviewed hundreds of nerds and learned what really works. Here we skip the just be confident cliches and get real about how nerds actually meet their player two. Are you ready?
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player two. Today I bring you Nicole, a nerd who found her player two, and we're going to talk about how they ended up together. The idea is to address some of your questions, dispel some myths, and hear about the many different ways that nerds can find real relationships. Nicole, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So before we get started with your story, what makes you a nerd?
Oh, gosh. Starting with the hard balls already. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's a really interesting question because, like, when I was thinking about, like, coming in today and this conversation that we were going to be having, I was thinking about, like, just kind of how this all culminated. And when I started dating David, it was like I had finally found my group. And so I'm kind of looking at it from that lens because I think, a lot of my life it felt like kind of isolating without being like, not in like a heavy way, but just like I've kind of always been trying like to find out like who I am authentically, right? And so when you look at it, like, what are the things that I like? Well, I like reading. I like playing video games. I like, watching anime sometimes, and I like all these different things that could make you like a nerd. But I really think, to me, like being a nerd is just kind of being authentically yourself and being comfortable with the things that you enjoy. That usually tend to be on a certain spectrum, games, television shows, comic books, those kinds of things. But I mean, that's what it means to me. I hope that makes sense.
Makes absolute sense, and I love, like, I haven't heard anyone yet talking about like sort of like doing the things you love that make you you, right?
Yeah.
So like being, I often talk about being your true self, which is what you're just describing. It's like everyone says, "Oh, just be yourself." It's not just be yourself, because just be yourself could be being shy, being introverted, being afraid of rejection. But being your true self is saying, "I like this stuff."
Yeah, just finding what you enjoy and immersing yourself in it for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. So where does your story with your husband start?
It starts actually without him.
Sounds good.
So I got a job out of college. I had finished my education. I got a job working as an instructional designer at an online school. And I remember just kind of like going into that experience, like, not knowing anybody or anything. I had one friend who worked at that company. It was kind of how I got that job. And for a very long time, it was just kind of like me and her, we would hang out and have lunch together. There were a bunch of other people that worked there that were about our same age, who I very slowly over time started forming like this amazing friendship with, and they're some of the best friends that I ever have. One of them, his name was Max. Shout out to Max. He was engaged at the time, and we'd become such good friends that he wanted to invite me to his wedding. And David was actually one of his groomsmen. He knew him in high school. He also knew somebody else who we had worked with at the time, who was also going to be at the wedding. So it kind of turned into like, even though Max was the one getting married, it kind of turned into like a group event.
Okay.
And I just remember like one day I was sitting in my office and Max comes over and he's like, I need you to come over to my desk for a second. So we go over to his desk and David's Facebook profile was pulled up and he said, this is my friend David. He's single and physically fit. Which like,
Okay.
I'm like, that's hysterical. Like, okay, I guess those are two qualifications, like check and check. And he's like, I think that you guys would be really good. Like, you'd be a really good match for each other. And I'd love for you to meet him. Like, he's going to be in the wedding. And, you know, I just want you to know about it. And then he said nothing to David. So we actually, that's how we met at my friend's wedding. I went in completely knowing like, hey, I'm going to go talk to this guy. And he went in completely blind.
Okay. So like you were, it would be like a half blind date
Yeah, basically.
at the wedding.
Yeah.
Were you guys sat together?
We weren't. He was sitting at a table with like the rest of the groomsmen. But it turned into one of these situations where, you know, we went through the ceremony. It was beautiful. And then we went into the reception. We did the cocktail hour sort of thing. Everybody got up and gave their speeches and things like that. And then once like dinner was being served, like I got up and I went over to see my other friend who was one of the groomsmen, who also knew David because he was, you know, we worked together as well. And he was just like, oh, have you met David? And then, you know, it just kind of, we danced together, we hung out, we talked a little bit and got to know each other. And then it wasn't like, I don't want to say it wasn't like an instant connection. Like we really hit it off for sure. But it wasn't until like 2 years later that we actually started dating. That was just like the first time that we met. Yeah.
Before we go to 2 years later, what did Matt see that he wanted to introduce you to? Do you know?
You mean like why did Max want to introduce me to David?
Max, sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, that's okay. I think that he just saw that we were like just very compatible people and just kind of like how we talk, how we can converse with each other. David and I do this thing where we just kind of like riff off of each other, where we can have a conversation. We can have like 3 different conversations at once. And we're just kind of like weaving in and out of these like stories between each other, like while we're having dinner or whatever. And I think it was, you know, something in our personalities that we just kind of mesh. I'd have to guess that was kind of it. I probably have to ask him to be sure. But yeah, I think it was just, you know, he saw a similar person, but not the same person in each of us, I would think.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So what did you think when you first met him at the wedding, when you saw him?
I thought he was so cute. I remember being like so incredibly nervous because like I knew that they were doing this. I knew this was like the master plan.
But he didn't.
But he didn't. and I don't know if I knew that he didn't or not. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Okay.
But I just, I remember thinking that, like, he was so cute. We were talking a lot, like, about comic books. I remember we talked a lot about comic books. He was a great dancer. This guy is a bard through and through. He has the music in him all the time. So, like, singing, dancing, like, he was just really fun and, like, really exciting to be around. And it was very easy to have a conversation with. I remember thinking, like, as nervous as I was, like, oh my gosh, like, how is this going to go? What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? And, like, once we finally started, like, hanging out, it was really, like, smooth sailing.
Right. So, like, you saw him, you're like, okay, he's cute. Then, like, you got introduced by your other friend
Mm-hmm.
and just started chatting, danced, had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
You clicked, but you said it took 2 years. What happened?
A lot of stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that was kind of, like, going on in the background. One of the things that I kind of poke fun at him for all the time is that, like, at the end of the wedding, I remember we were leaving and he was like, oh, we should hang out more often. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. And then he didn't ask me for my phone number. And then he was just, like, gone. Like, at one point, like, the bridal party, like, left to go wherever it was they were going. And then he just, like, wasn't around anymore. And I was like, what just like, I thought I had a great time. What just happened?
Do you know what happened?
They just left. So I know that I had found out once we started dating and kind of had this conversation, because I remember I pulled him aside and I was like, why didn't you ask me for my phone number? Like, why did this take 2 years? And he told me, it's like, just at the time, even when you meet somebody, you don't really know what's, like, going on with them. So I had found out that he had been engaged before. To somebody he had dated in high school, went to college with. It ended, like, it wasn't a very healthy relationship. It ended very poorly. And he was just not in a really great headspace, like, mentally. It wasn't necessarily recent, but I think the weekend before that, he had been at another wedding that he was in, where, like, the two of them were both there. So, like, he was, having a time. So I'm sure I was completely unexpected, like, in the situation, like, me coming out of here and being like, oh, we're going to, I'm getting introduced to this person who I might potentially date. And he's, like, not even thinking about dating at that point in time. So we were just like, not that we were on different pages, because we both had a great time with each other, but, like, we were just at different places in our lives. And it took him, he was also studying abroad. He was doing his master's in medieval history at the University of Leeds at the time. So he wasn't even in the country. Well, he was there for the wedding, but then he went back to, like, finish his program. So yeah, it was just, he had a lot of work to do, I think, on his part, just kind of, like, coming down from that past relationship and preparing himself for a new one. We got there eventually. But yeah, it took about 2 years to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that Max suggested that, like, you should meet him, knowing that he, like, well, maybe he didn't know, right? That he was coming out of that.
I think he didn't know about the other wedding that he was in.
Right.
I think that he knew that, he had this friend who was single. I don't think it was newly single. I think it had been a little while, but I'm not sure if they ever really, like, talked about that deep of stuff, right. I guess. And David is, I mean, like I said, like David's a bard. He's like a really good actor. He is good at just, having conversations with people and keeping it light and keeping it jovial. And,
pretending.
He's really good at masking when he wants to. So, I mean, that's the heavy part of the stuff, but, that's part of, that's just something that we had to go through.
Yeah.
We went through it together weirdly, but not, because it was just like kind of his journey. And I think that's kind of what started it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So after the wedding, he doesn't ask for your number. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And what happened then?
So Max got married. It was the beginning of October. My birthday is at the end of October. And I love my birthday. It's very important to me. And up until that point, I had never played any TTRPGs or anything like that before. And Max was one of those friends who, like, he had been into that. He was, playing a bunch of games with different people. He knew that I was interested in, like, Dungeons and Dragons, learning how to play. So he bought me the starter set for my birthday, and he put together a game for my birthday. And I remember he gave me the starter set, and I opened it, and he's like, give me, a couple days and times. He's like, I'll DM for you, and we'll put a game together, and with our friends and his wife, and we ended up doing that. And I remember being like, is your friend David gonna come?
Had you been talking to David in between?
No.
Okay. But you still remembered.
Yeah. And it was just, it was earlier that month, and I was still sitting there like, this guy didn't ask for my phone number. And I'm like, so how can I, like, we friended each other on Facebook, and I don't know why, but I was like, I'm just not, like, I don't know. He said that he wanted to hang out with me.
He should be the man.
Well, I don't even believe in that, but it was just like, it was just more so that, like, I was unsure of kind of where I stood, because I had got this messaging that was like, I want to hang out with you more. And then not the action behind it to, like, facilitate that. So I'm like, okay, well, I think that he was very genuine when he said that. So I'll be the facilitator, but I don't want to reach out and be like, hey, do you want to play? Whatever. I had this very convenient avenue, right? Because, like, my best friend is one of his best friends. So I was like, let me play those cards. So we set up a game, and we started playing a game. We had I believe it was monthly. We would do a monthly game with a bunch of our friends, and, like, they taught me how to play D&D. Max did a lot of teaching because he was the DM, but having David there, who has also, like, he played a bunch, it gave me opportunity to kind of, like, ask him questions and, like, have him, like, help me a lot with role play, because that was something that I was incredibly new to. And him being the bard is, super, super great at, like, that kind of stuff. So we would have, like, scenes where we would riff off of each other, and, like, we just really started forming that friendship. Like, we started forming a bond through this thing that, like, I loved it. I thought it was great. Obviously, like, we played it for quite a while. And even once that game petered out, then David started a game when he came back from England, started running a game for his brothers and his nephews. And he was like, I'm going to invite Nicole to play. So we just kind of, we were TTRPG buddies for a while.
So that first game was online?
It was online and then in person. I believe we did like a session 0 online by the time we got started. And then it was in person once he completed his program and came back to the United States.
Right. Right. So you guys started playing. You played the first campaign with Max. Then David started his own. He invited you. Were you guys having any sort of friendship outside of the campaign, or was it just within the group?
So at first, it was very much just like, I'll see you at the table. When we did that first campaign. Once we got to know each other a little bit better, I think he got like a little bit more comfortable with me, and we kind of started learning some stuff about each other. So the one thing that, all my friends know almost immediately is that I love Nicolas Cage. I love his movies. I think he's a very underrated actor. I'm sure, this is probably a hot take, but I love Nicolas Cage. I love fun facts about him. His life is so weird. So David learned that very early on, and that was kind of like he found his in. I guess he came across an article about a new Nicolas Cage movie that was coming out, and it was like an interview that he did where, they talked about just this weird thing where he he was sued by like the Mongolian government for owning a T-Rex skull from like one of their museums or something, like something crazy. And he was like, what is going on here? And I was like, oh yeah, the T-Rex skull. Like, yeah, he had that. He gave it back. It's okay.
We all know the story, clearly.
Yeah, obviously. He got it like an art auction, and he ended up giving it back and paying a fine. It's fine. But that was his, like, one day I just got a text from him that was like, what is this about? Like, what is going on here? Can you inform me? And I was like, yeah, right. I'll tell you about the T-Rex skull. Sure. So we did have after that, we had a fairly regular, like, chatting conversation. It would be like every couple of days. And then at some point it was just like, at least once a day I'd hear from him, and then it was kind of like all day every day kind of thing. Like, it just kind of blew up from there while we were also doing like the game that he was running. So
right.
Yeah.
Do you know if from his side if there was an intention behind that first message?
I don't think that there was. So I feel like our story seems just kind of like a roller coaster, because very early on when we were like texting, at one point I remember him like asking me, like, because I guess, Max is over here being like, hey, do you want to date my friend Nicole? Once he had started the table game with his brother and his nephews, I guess his brother even got in his ear and was like, that girl is really cool. Like, why aren't you dating her? And so I think he was just like hearing it from all these people, and he was just kind of like, what do you think is going on here? Like, I remember him he didn't ask me in those words, but it was just kind of the conversation we had. And he's like, like, what are your expectations? Because like, I just kind of want to know. And he's just, very forward about those kinds of things. And I had said to him, like, I'm open to it. Like, I was like, I'm having a really fun time. Like, I'm just enjoying talking to you at this point in time. I'm open to it, but I'm not necessarily like, oh my God, date me, please. We're just, we're doing what we're doing, and that's okay with me. And he was like, okay, good. And he, had said to me, like, I just don't know if I'm ready to be in a relationship right now, and I don't want to hurt you or like lead you on in any way. He's like, I'm not sure about me at this present point in time. And I'm like, okay, great.
How much time passed between when you first met and this?
Probably about a year.
A year. Okay.
Probably.
And at this point, you guys were chatting once a day, or?
Yeah, like every day.
Every day. All day.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And this conversation was through text.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Cool. How did you feel about that?
I think at first I was a little disappointed, but I think, I really appreciated him being so upfront about that. Because that does kind of suck going into things and having these preconceived expectations, especially because, think about the lead up, we had been introduced with this, have you met my friend David? He's single and physically fit. Okay, great. So that immediately puts an idea in your mind, right? But something that I think I had kind of discovered about myself in this time, with all of this happening, was that I think it's really important not to go into spaces expecting romantic outcomes. And what I mean by that is, I feel like when we're in college, we're surrounded by people. There's lots of opportunities for people to date, when you're in school. When you are out of college, that pool dwindles so much. And I remember starting my job and thinking will I be able to find somebody to date who I work with? Don't date people who you work with. That's a bad thing. Don't think like that. But I went into that kind of thinking that because, I was no longer in these communities where I had all this access to people to date. And I remember the guys that I was working with, my friend Max, he was engaged. My friend Doug was already married. Doug was the other co-conspirator in all of this, if I didn't mention that before. And everybody else was just I didn't know them or I didn't have opportunities to know them. And so I had almost dismissed my friendship with Max and Doug, because I had thought about it in this lens, I can't date them. So it actually took a long time for me and Max to even be friends, to get to talk to one another, to get to know each other, because I, didn't have any intention. I didn't think about him in terms of friendship. So, and now he's one of my absolute best friends. Doug is one of my absolute best friends. He actually married me and David. So that was something that I kind of had started analyzing about myself early on. I don't think that you should walk into a room and look around and be who can I date here? Yeah. Because that puts on this preconceived notion of somebody's value based off of their ability to date you, and you can't, it's hard to see past that. So when David said to me I'm not here to date you right now, I think there was a part of me that was kind of expecting that we were going to start dating, and I did get very upset about that. And then I thought about it for a second and I was that's okay, because you're still having fun with this person. You're still the reason why we were talking every day is because we had stuff to talk about. We would get in these pun wars all the time where we would just pick a category and then riff puns off of each other back and forth for hours. And it was just so fun and so mentally stimulating. It was just it's such a good time. So why would I ruin that just because this guy doesn't want to be my boyfriend at this point in time? Why would I dismiss that? And I think that's, looking back on it, I'm so glad that was my outcome. That was my perspective on it. Because that just allowed us to create this foundation of like our friendship that, I don't know, just kind of makes what we have now just that much more incredible.
Yeah. I love what you just brought up, because I keep hearing over and over again from like clients or like online as well, like, oh, I don't want friends, I want to date. I'm like,
Right.
yes, to date, you should be making friends. But I have
Right.
friends. Yes, but,
Right.
you know, or like, I like this person doesn't like me back, therefore I'm just going to walk away. And I'm like, that person could like introduce you to someone. They
Right.
could stop being in a relationship. They could change your mind. They
Right.
could become a great friend. Like, there's so many options for like just being friends.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's exactly what happened here. Like, I, gave Max a chance to be my friend. He introduced me to somebody who, he obviously, we're married now, so he did change his mind,
Yeah.
So if you just go into these like situations with those preconceived notions, you're putting yourself in a box, and you just have to be open to like what's going to happen. Like, so many different things can happen.
Yeah. And a very common thing that I keep hearing is like, oh, like women decide whether they want to date you within like the first, I don't know, if it was like 5 or 30 seconds or some crazy thing like that. And I'm almost like, well, my surveys say otherwise. Like, my survey said like the average time that people are friends are like 8 months to a year. And that's like 70% of the relationships that I surveyed.
Yeah.
Right. In like multiple countries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when do those seconds start? Like, at which point?
Yeah.
Which then for some people, like in my Discord, they're like, well, like if people take so long as friends to start dating, how come they change their mind? Right. And it's quite interesting because like one of the people in my Discord mentioned that he felt like someone else was into him and he friend zoned her. And recently he's like, I think I like her now. And like, it's been like a couple months. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you were asking about how people transition from friends to liking them without being attracted in the beginning.
Yeah.
It happens. That's how it happens. Right. And you never know.
Right. And like that's why I don't like the term friend zone, because I just don't think it doesn't exist. Like David, one of the things that touched me the most about just this whole thing was that like, I mentioned that we never know what people are going through. And like he started opening up to me about all of that kind of like very, very slowly as time went on. And as he was talking to me about it, he was having realizations himself, whereas he this is what he told me, afterwards, where he was just realizing that like, I actually do like this girl. And like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to have a relationship yet, but I do like her. So like, what does that mean? He texted me the one day and he was like, I'll never, this was in my wedding vows. Like, I'll never forget this. Like, this is the moment where I'm like, oh, I'm in love with this guy. He said that he texted me because he had a really bad day. And I was like, well, what are you doing right now? And he was like, oh, I'm listening to Yellow Card. Yellow Card is my favorite band. And he had never heard any of their songs before we had started talking. So he's like, I'm just, sitting here listening to Yellow Card. And I was like, why are you listening to Yellow Card? And he's like, because it's your favorite band. And, it makes me think of you. And like, that makes me happy. And I'm like, you love me.
What else do you need?
Right. And I'm like, you love me. I love you.
Wait, were you still friends at this point, or were you already dating?
We were still friends at that point. And it was then, I think it was like after that, he actually like, he went to therapy. He started going to therapy because he was like, like we all have our baggage. And he was like, I don't want to make you carry my baggage. So like, I'm going to go talk to somebody and, get out of my own head and see if this is something that we can do. And we started dating like very shortly after that. Because his therapist was like, yeah, you like this girl, what are you doing? But
give me my money. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially.
Duh.
Yeah. Your hour's up. But yeah, like things my point being here is that like you never know what's going to happen. Things start out one way. He had to find himself along the way. I had to find myself along the way. And it just, until you start like really kind of examining where you are in that situation. Because that's kind of what the focus is. Like we each had to focus on ourselves individually while we were like building this friendship to get to that kind of like rock solid place and actually start dating.
Yeah. You were saying like, you don't like the term friend zone. I use it because everybody uses it, right?
Right.
It's what everyone says, right? But the way that I see it, and that I'm seeing really clearly with your story, is the way that I see it is you have attraction on the one hand and you have friendship on the other. And those are completely separate things.
Yeah.
Right? You can have attraction without friendship. You can have friendship without attraction. You can have both, none, whatever. And I really like that in your case. It's like you had both, but you still kept the friendship. And it was clear, and you guys were even talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because there's also the fear of, for many people, it's like, well, if I tell my friend that I like my friend, then that's going to ruin the relationship, or like something crazy is going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, he was like, okay, here are the cards, all cards on the table. I like you. I'm not ready. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And you just kept the friendship, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it worked out in the end, but even if it didn't, like, even if we didn't get to the place where we are now, like, we still would have fun with each other, like we would still probably be playing games every once in a while and having our pun wars. And like, these things aren't inherently romantic, but they led there, but they didn't have to. Like it really just was, when it comes down to it, like I just enjoy this person for who they are. And I just appreciate him for being, who he is, and he makes me laugh. He makes me, he makes me feel good about myself. And I expect that from all of my friends, not just my husband, like that's why they're my friends. So yeah, it really is just like a core tenet of our story, is that friendship piece.
How did you feel for so long, like liking him? And I'm guessing like the more time passed, the more your feelings grew. Mm-hmm. But just like, I mean, the feeling that I get is like being stuck, being a friend, right? Because like he knows you like him, and he's like, no, and you're still friends, and you still like him. Like, how did you sort of like keep the friendship going without sort of getting too upset?
So we've reached the portion of our story where David, he calls it my master plan.
Okay.
Which is not as manipulative as it sounds.
It's not like starting a D&D campaign and invite and you happen to tell your friend to invite him. Nothing like that.
Nothing. Totally nothing like that. No, it's actually more of exactly that. I just, it's all about that communication piece. Like communication to me is like, yes, like you're talking, you could be very blunt about it. You can be open and just say it outright. But there's so many other elements to like communication, right? So like how people are reacting to you, like verbally, and like I don't want this to sound like, read between the lines, because I feel like that's also a problem with a lot of people dating, is that they're looking for clues when like just hear what people are telling you.
Yes.
But at the same time, like you also have to be very coherent of the situations that you're in. So like my example here is just that like I continued to make space for other, like, I guess like other types of I don't know if this is making sense, but like,
For
for
romance.
example, yeah. So for example, like I said, my birthday is really big for me. So I think it was either a year or 2 years, somewhere in between there, after we had met at the wedding and we're hanging out and we're doing our friendship thing. It was after our conversation. He said, "I'm not ready yet." I threw a murder mystery birthday party. And we went all out. Like I transformed, it was like Western themed. So like I transformed my apartment into like an old time saloon. And like we had like we went crazy with it. And so I like gave my friends, like they all had characters they had to play, and like we did the whole clue thing, and like it was a lot of fun. I made sure that I picked a murder mystery that kind of had a romantic element to it.
Whoops.
But it didn't have to, again, because like I wanted to leave space to kind of like, well, what happens, like happens. So I made sure like David got like the Doc Holliday character, and I got like the lady character that was, I don't remember who it was at this point, but like that was just kind of opposite that, just to kind of like see what would happen. And it was very like PG kind of stuff, like it's a murder mystery, like birthday party game. It's like it was just role playing. That went really well. David's a big actor, and he just kind of like played it up, and he had so much fun with it. And then there were just like other opportunities where he would invite our group of friends that we were, or our D&D table, at that time, to like Shakespearean simulcasts at like our local theater, because that's something that he's like super interested in. And I remember like we got a text one day that was like, "Oh, they're showing some play," I don't remember which one it was, at the local theater, like who wants to get tickets. And I remember going over to Max's desk during the workday and being like, "So you're busy that day, right?" And so like we ended up doing like a bunch of that stuff together, and just kind of like creating space for me and him to hang out in between like all of our talking and stuff. And like it just, that time that we got to spend with each other, like that was very important, but didn't necessarily have to be like romantic. It was like, me and David and like Benedict Cumberbatch, like, watching this, like this Shakespearean play, and just, making that time for like each other's interests, and, just hanging out with each other on a level that was like kind of a date, but like not kind of a date. And we would also do group stuff too. Like we'd go see like the Star Wars movies when they came out as like a group or whatever. And it just kind of, it it almost stuff like that kind of like naturally occurred because the people we were hanging out with were also in relationships. So, like Doug would sit next to his wife, Max would sit next to his wife. So then, who's going to sit next to each other? Nicole and David. Yeah. So just, making those spaces and just, letting the situations be what they are and just kind of rolling with it.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned like sort of like interacting in different places. Like one thing that I bring up over and over again is that you should take people out of what I call the container, right? Like if you met him in D&D, do something outside, like whatever, Magic the Gathering, watching anime, whatever it is, but something that's not D&D.
Right.
If you meet them at a convention, okay, go do something else. Yeah. That's how you get to meet people. It doesn't have to be romantic. It's just to deepen the relationship, which is basically what you were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's great. So I think it's a good master plan. But also I like that you were open to the possibility of, okay, this not turning romantic. Right.
I think you have to be, because like, I think that's just, I mean, I don't know. You want to find your player too, right? Like we're all kind of like hopeful for that in the end. But even using that analogy, like you have to be able to work well together. Like these co-op games that come out, like they're hard, and you have to like be super like trustworthy. You have to be like super trusting, with like the person that you're playing, and like you each have to understand, your particular role in the game. I'm thinking specifically about like It Takes Two, the game. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
Haven't played it. I've seen some of those couples games, yes.
Yeah,
but I haven't played it.
But yeah, it's a lot of in that game specifically, it's a lot of like you're playing as a couple who have very specific roles and jobs that are assigned. And so like you have to trust that like your person can platform and go over to this and do their special thing while you're over here waiting to do your special thing. So those two things can combine and you can like pass the level. And I'm terrible at platforming. So David's always over here like sitting there like twiddling his thumbs, waiting for me to get to where I need to be. But he's super patient about it and doesn't care. And like, that you need to learn that stuff, Hey,
you were patient for 2 years.
Right.
It's his turn now.
Yeah. I mean, right. Exactly. So like you have to learn that stuff about each other, because if you're gonna, have somebody who's like sitting on the couch being like, oh my God, why can't you make that jump? Like that's not good. That's not good. Yeah.
So like after those 2 years that like you guys were like hanging out, you had your master plan that you were executing perfectly. At what point, like, how was the transition? Like, did he like just text you? Was it like, okay, hey, let's go on a date? Like what happened that it went from friends to more than friends?
Yeah. So I actually also really like football. I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan. Go Colts. David is not. He doesn't know anything about football. So like I don't remember how it started exactly, but it would get to a point where I'm sorry. All due respect, I have to go back and pay respects to Nicolas Cage. It was Nicolas Cage again, honestly, because we were having these conversations, and I one time said to him, like, I need to school you. Like, I need to teach you about the genius of Nicolas Cage. I have like a master list of all of my favorite movies in order of importance and why. And like, you just need to sit there and listen to it, because like this is a thing that I care about. So we planned a Nicolas Cage movie marathon. We spent an entire weekend in my apartment watching Nicolas Cage movies and essentially
just
giving him an and essentially just giving him an education in like, you know, one of Nicole's favorite things. And after that, we were like, okay, well, we're done with Nicolas. I remember he asked me, he's like, well, we're done with Nicolas Cage. Like, what's next? And I was like, well, it's football season, dude. So you're not, you know, Sundays are for football. I gotta play my fantasy football. And he was like, oh, I could watch football. And I was like, okay. So he would come over on Sundays and he would watch the Colts with me. And it was this is actually, I think it's really sweet. This is actually how I remember what our anniversary is, like the day we started dating. He came over to watch a Colts game with me, and it was the day that Andrew Luck, their quarterback at the time, retired, and I was devastated. Andrew Luck was the reason why I watched football. He was really big on literacy. He was a really big like Lord of the Rings nerd. Like he was the reason why I got into football. I was like, oh my gosh, nerds can play sports. He had his like own book club that he went through like with the team, and like all the fans would do this book club together, and like that was a whole lot of fun. And got me really like interested in football. And so he had gotten just, you know, hurt that he was really young and he was retiring. And like, I was so upset by that. And, you know, David happened to be there while it was happening. Cause like we're watching a game. I get a notification on Twitter that like Andrew Luck is retiring, like during the game.
Wow.
My friends are texting me and they're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, did you just hear? And blah, blah, blah. And like, it just seemed like it's something now, like looking back on it, it's so minuscule, but like in the moment, it was very important to me. And so like it was happening and it felt devastating. So we ended up, I actually like turned the game off because I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And David was like, do you want to watch like a Will Forte show or something? Because I also love Will Forte. And I was like, yes, I do. So then we started watching something else, and he just like came over and he sat down next to me and he was like, I'm really sorry that this was like such an upsetting experience for you. And I was like, it's okay. It's just football. I mean, I was like really upset, but like at the end of the day, like it's just football. It has really like no effect on my life. And he was like, well, I came in here and I was really hoping that like I could kiss you today. Like I was like building up the like the nerve to do it. And he's like, but I don't know if it would be bad now because like this really upsetting thing that just happened. And I was like, no, you can kiss me now. Like that would make me feel better. So the day that we started dating is the day that Andrew Luck retired because I was very upset. So
you're like, you can console me. I don't mind.
Yeah, there you go. That's fine. I feel better now. Thank you.
It's just football. Come here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Love it. That's amazing. That's awesome. So,
yeah.
I mean, you guys had a great communication from the very beginning up until like, including the first kiss.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's great. That's awesome. Nicole, is there something that you would like to share that you didn't get to, or like that we didn't get to touch on about your story that you would like to share with people?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think that's the gist of it. I think, you know, like my main message is just, you know, that when you're looking for your player to like, just be yourself and don't compromise on being yourself, I guess. Because I feel like, you know, the communication part for me and David was very big, because we were always kind of telling each other like who we are. Like, this is who we are in this situation. And this is, you know, this is how we feel. This is, you know, what we're going through. And I think that kind of like authenticity and that kind of honesty is really, really what's important. So like, I was touching on before, like, be open to just whatever happens. Like, don't try to, box other people in or put labels on things prematurely. Just be open and be honest and just be you.
Awesome. I know that your work, I think, would be helpful to many of the audience. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Just like share what you're doing and where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I so appreciate that opportunity. I didn't know if I should bring it up or not.
Yeah, no, feel free to.
Yeah, so I run a small business called Tabletop BLT. You can find us at tabletopblt.com, which essentially it stemmed from, this kind of experience that I had, especially since like I learned how to play TTRPGs through this experience. And also the fact that, I've worked in education for my entire career. And I've seen firsthand just how important immersion and interactivity is to like creating truly valuable, memorable learning experiences inside the classroom and out. So what we do is we say it's just me. I create custom TTRPG games, either, based off of systems that already exist, like D&D or Fantasy Age or Pathfinder, whatever your preference being, or I can come up with new ones for educational, learning and development, community-based types of situations. So I work with schools a lot, teachers who kind of want to create these immersive lesson plans. I work with community centers, libraries to start clubs, or even just, run a couple sessions teaching people how to play games. I also do some corporate work with like skill development. The biggest thing about TTRPGs is that they really teach you about like empathy, which you can't learn anywhere else. And I think a lot of, corporate America is missing that a lot of these days. And then I also just like, if you want to throw a party, if you want to have friends, if you want to learn how to play, if you want to do a bachelorette party, like I got the games for you. And a lot of the community centered work that I do is around skill development, learning how to talk to people, learning empathy, learning communication, learning, all of those things that you'll find on a character list skill sheet that you might not otherwise. I got a few ideas in the works. I've been thinking recently about how I can do like 20-minute one-shot speed dating events. Noodling that one over, but like we're trying to do fun stuff like that and get people out there and just, learning how to talk to each other and how to play games with each other and how to have fun with each other, because that's what this is all about.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. I think the work you're doing is great and it's really, really needed.
Thank you.
Everyone watching and listening, if you have any questions for Nicole or for any past or future guests, leave a comment, send me an email at dm@datelikeanerd.com or at datelikeanerd anywhere on social media, and maybe we can bring her back and just continue exploring either about her story or what she's doing. Take care and continue playing.
Looking for a player too? I've interviewed hundreds of nerds and learned what really works. Download your data-backed guide with real stories, actionable tips, and a step-by-step system for finding love the nerd way at datelikeanerd.com/reality.